This is Columbus Concerns, a public affairs presentation of North American Broadcasting. Here's your host, Mark News.
With us is the Executive Director of the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, William Murdoch, and thanks for being here today.
Yeah, good morning.
Let's start off talking just a little bit about what the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission is and what you do.
Yeah, thanks for asking. And it's an exciting time to be in Central Ohio. And at the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, our friends just call us MORPC. We help the region get ready for growth. We help it look at transportation, we look at the environment, we look at housing, and we do this all over Central Ohio. So 15 counties, everybody from communities as large as Columbus down to small ones like Lockbourne, Marion County down to Chillicothe. And the whole region as a whole is growing. There's a lot to be thinking about, a lot to get ready for. And we take that long view. So we help community leaders, we help community members realize that we're growing and do the things and plan for the things we need to do today to make sure that it's improving our quality of life.
How far out do you look?
Well, right now we're focused on 2050. So a lot of our planning looks out 20, 25 years because some of the investments we have to make them now. We have to do the plans now to get ready for that.
Well, you've been thrown a big curveball. I mean, you do
That's right.
these projections, and then all of a sudden, the largest economic development in the state's history with the Intel project comes to Central Ohio, and on the fringes of Central Ohio, Honda making a huge investment. So how has that changed your long-term planning?
Well, it certainly has, and what an exciting moment to be. It's so much better to have a problem where your problem is growth and your problem is getting ready for it. Intel, an incredible boon, so much excitement about the change that can make to the community. Honda doubling down on their investment in Central Ohio and building on it. Yes, it's going to increase our growth, but the good news is we've already been planning to grow. And in our plans, we didn't always know exactly where that growth was going to come from. So Intel's a little more than we thought. And what does that mean? That means that our projections for population and growth about 5% higher than we thought they'd be. And it might mean that growth could happen a little sooner too. So as we think about, a year and a half ago, what the growth we were planning for was still pretty strong. But now that means those things we were planning for, we might need to invest in those sooner. We might need to think just a little bit bigger.
So when you take a look at Central Ohio as a whole, what are the areas that need work?
Yeah, so the whole place. When we think about the immediate impact of Intel, certainly Licking County and Delaware and Franklin, they're right at that juncture where we need to improve the roads. We need to think about transit. We need to think about housing. We also need to think about quality of life. When we think about the rest of the region, that it's no different. We have transportation needs that are growing. Our population is changing. And one of the things that means is we have to do work on the types of options we offer people. So our roads are pretty good in Central Ohio. No one believes me. I hope nobody's listening during a rush hour. But our commute times are really good when we look nationally. And so we want to make the investments now so that quality of life that we can expect continues as we grow. But in order to make that happen, we have to add other options to this. When we think just about transportation, that means things like better transit, trails, trains, and we can talk about that in a little bit. Those are the kind of things that we think we need to do now so that as we're making those investments, our community can get better as we grow bigger.
The Executive Director of the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, or MORPC, William Murdoch, is our guest this morning on Columbus Concerns. One thing that's a little different than in the past is there's some money available with the Infrastructure Act and with the state making commitments to Intel and the like. There are actual resources now.
Yeah, and it's not just local resources. Our local governments, so from Columbus to Licking County, have been really visionary, New Albany, places like that, in making sure we could have these investments. Mm-hmm. But what's really exciting and why this could be a once-in-a-generation moment is there are state and federal resources available for the things we need to do for growth. So there's the bipartisan infrastructure law, which passed last year. That has money for just about every type of transformational transportation investment we need to do. Energy, from cars to trains to roads. There's a lot of funding out there, and part of what we're thinking about at MORPC and working with our partners is how can we not leave a dollar on the table, because we need to do those investments, and this is a great moment for it.
Mm-hmm. I saw an interesting article the other day that the mayor of Grove City was talking about the impact that the Honda plant is going to have on Grove City, and that's a pretty good distance away. So this Intel investment, Honda investment, these other major projects, what kind of impact are they going to have on the fringe areas of Central Ohio?
I love this question, and we know Mayor Stage really well. We have, at MORPC, we have a team of people who do mapping. And I mentioned this to anybody who wants to nerd out. We looked at drive times from Intel. We looked at drive times from Grove City, and we mapped it. Mm-hmm. And if you look within about an hour's drive during rush hour from the Intel site or from the Honda site, almost all of Central Ohio is touched. And why is that important? Because if you think about your own life, you might commute 20, 30 minutes to work. So not everybody's going to live right next to the Intel factory. They're going to live within 30 to 60 minutes. When we talk to these employers, a lot of their supplying companies and the contracting services they depend on, it's within that 30 to 60 minute circle. So an investment in Licking County, New Albany is going to affect the whole region because people and companies are going to locate around there. So that's why it's so transformative. It's so big that even Grove City can be looking at Intel saying, how do we get ready for it?
And I'm sure that a lot of communities are saying, how do we benefit from this? We know people are going to want to live in certain areas with the great schools and the great neighborhoods. How do we get there? I'm sure you get that question.
Yeah, and growth just doesn't happen. If you let it, growth will happen to you, and that could overwhelm your quality of life.
Yeah.
I'm a planner, so we want people to make sure that growth happens in a way that their schools get better, their community gets better, their parks, their environment get better. That's the kind of things that when we talk to communities, and we work with over 80 of them, we say, you need to make the investments, you need to plan for the future so you can craft it in a way that takes advantage of the growth. And we're very thoughtful about that. We're very serious about that. But just going back to Grove City, that's a great example of a community that's thinking not just about Intel, but they're also about the same distance from the Honda facilities. If they take advantage of that and they look at their strengths, they can make Grove City even better.
What does good growth look like?
Oh, that's a great question. So we think about this on a couple different levels. We think about cost. So think about your own costs and how much it costs you to commute. Think about what it costs your communities to provide the services. That you can grow in ways that help minimize the costs of that government need to do by taking advantage of things like infrastructure that's already there, roads that are already there. Good growth also looks at making sure your environment is high quality or maybe even better. So looking at your parks, looking at how your streams are connected to things. It has to do with schools. It also has to do with housing and the number of options. So if I'm thinking about the Central Ohio 25 years from now, I want a Central Ohio that grows in a way that gives me more options for housing, better parks, more options to get around. That's what we think good growth looks like.
The Executive Director of the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, William Murdoch, is here. You talked about how growth can happen to you if you don't plan for it. And we've seen places like Silicon Valley where there's been huge growth in the tech industry, but it's priced a lot of people right out of the housing market, and they're having some major quality of life problems.
Yeah, it's true. Housing is a big part of this, and there's a lot of really good work and difficult discussions happening in Central Ohio. Again, we're still a relatively affordable place to live, but when you look at these places like Austin or Nashville, growth gets away from you if you don't get in front of it, like we were talking about. Housing can spiral out of control. We're at a moment now where we're already experiencing housing crisis at just about every level in the market. Yeah. Yes, we need affordable housing, but we need housing in the middle. We need workforce housing. We need housing for seniors. We need all of it. And what we're working with communities on is how can we speed up the construction of it in a way that still maintains that quality of life. Mark, these are really difficult conversations. People get stressed out by change. They don't understand necessarily what's going on in the region. So part of what needs to happen is some really thoughtful conversations with the community about we need housing. So how can we do it in a way that makes your community better?
We're getting bigger, period.
That's right.
It's going to happen.
It's happening, yes.
Yeah. William Murdoch is here from the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. And Ohio hasn't had passenger rail service since 1979.
Right.
some say Columbus is the largest city in America without passenger rail. Some say it's San Antonio. It's always a little battle there to see who's bigger. But is that going to change, do you think?
Yeah, so whether we're the biggest or not, it's not a badge of honor.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that gives us the opportunity is, we think it's going to change. And why we think this is, again, at the federal level, they're making the largest investment ever in passenger rail. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the passenger rail network in the country, if you think like a business, you're looking for markets that aren't served. And we are the largest market that is not anywhere close to being on the national passenger rail system. Mm-hmm. And that means a good way to think about this, and it sounds corny, but we believe it, is adding passenger rail to Columbus makes us the best business case for passenger rail new service in the United States. That's why we think that Governor DeWine has said, let's take another look at this. Let's look at how much it's going to cost, the benefits of it, how it helps improve not just passenger, but can it help freight rail at the same time? And it's an exciting time. So we're working with the state on what's called 3C&D, which is Cleveland, Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati. But we're also working with partners at looking at connections to Chicago, looking at connections to Pittsburgh. Frankly, I grew up in Columbus, and I don't want Columbus to be a stop on a rail. I want it to be a hub. And so we're working at making sure that we provide options to the inner city, to our suburbs, and to rural Ohio as well.
And there's some other plans for other corridors for rail as well, right?
Yeah, so we do transportation planning, and every few years we ask the community, what do you want? And passenger rail always is one of the top things that's been on the list. So as part of this process and getting ready for these new federal funds, we asked, well, where should we have service? And the map just lit up looking at places that we could add service to. So there are a lot of opportunities. I really think when you look at the options we have in Central Ohio right now, young people or businesses get here, and sometimes you might have heard this, Mark, somebody will say, well, where's the train station? You're like, well, it's 2 hours north in Cleveland. Yeah. Well, that's something that we know that everybody's hungry for, and we think this is a moment it could happen.
Now, I know the state has applied for federal funding for the study.
They're about to,
for the 3C and D corridor. Where does that get us?
Yeah, so the states, and we're working in partner with them, they're going to apply for that 3C and D. There are other, we're in another partnership looking at Pittsburgh, Columbus to Chicago. If we're successful in moving to the next step is to answer those questions that everybody has. The how much, exactly where does it go? What are the times? Where are the stations going to be? And it's this pretty quick process where working with our federal partners, working with Amtrak, we'll answer those questions. And at the end of that process, then we can move forward potentially with capital improvements.
We were close a few years ago, and Governor Kasich stepped in and said the long-term costs are going to be just too high for this. Why is this time different from then?
It's a great question. So one way to think about what we're looking at now is we're looking at service that's competitive with car travel. Mm-hmm. So looking at 2-ish hours to Cleveland, 2.5 to Cincinnati via Dayton. That's really competitive when you're looking at the business market. So this is one that we're prioritizing speed. But also, when we're looking at the kind of market we have, Central Ohio alone has added 250,000 people in those last 10 years. Mm-hmm. So those are 250,000 more people that could be potential customers. That makes the business case stronger, and it makes the case for investment better too.
Now, I don't want to get you in trouble here, but
no worries.
If you get politicians involved in this, that train's going to stop in every small town between Cleveland and Cincinnati. So how do you stop that from happening? Because then it's going to ruin your times.
Well, I appreciate the question, and we do a lot of thinking about this. So part of the study is going to answer what's the quickest alignment. So certainly we want to make sure that the major cities are connected. And, here in Columbus, the convention center's already designed their train stations, so they're ready. But part of the national effort, too, is to connect rural areas. And so this gets to your question, well, which rural stop, which suburb gets involved? Those are questions we're going to be answering soon. It might be fair to think of this as there could be, if you're familiar with transit services, an express version, mm-hmm. and then a local service. It still won't hit every place along the route, but it could hit a good number of communities. And, honestly, as long as folks have 10 to 30-minute access to this, that could be a game changer for all sorts of parts of Ohio. We really believe that rural Ohio is key to this. Having that access, if you talk to some of our smaller communities, they want that easy trip to the airport where they can get on and in 30 minutes they're at John Glenn International. Or if you're coming from Northeast Ohio, you want to get down to Intel a couple times a week, they want that option to not have to drive. So we know there's a lot of need for those communities on the in-between.
So it just a downtown to downtown probably doesn't work.
No, and it won't be like that. So the expectation, initial projections that Amtrak looked at, a stop in Delaware, a stop in a community called Crestline, so some in-between stops on the way. Mm-hmm. We're a big enough community that whether it's express or it's local, there should be multiple stops in Central Ohio, depending on which direction you go in.
Who are the riders for Amtrak, do you think?
Yeah, so when you think about this, it's everybody. And what do I mean by that? Well, there are folks who can't drive. Kids, folks who are older and aren't able to drive anymore, they want that access. Mm-hmm. So giving them an option is an affordable option is important. But it's also really important for everybody from college kids on up through the workforce. A lot of folks in other parts of the country, so we looked a lot at North Carolina, people use it for work. So if you think in Ohio, we all are pretty connected. You get in Columbus, it's a 2-hour trip to Cleveland. You could be behind the wheel the whole time, or you could be working on the train, or maybe taking a nap on the train, or whatever you want to do to get caught up. There's a lot of business demand for it, and it's an option that really makes us more attractive. So when you look at that whole range of folks who might ride it, we think there could be strong ridership potential.
Let's talk just locally for a minute. CODA's making some big plans for some express bus routes around town. Do you support that plan?
CODA has been really innovative. So yes, we work with them closely. They're working on routes within Franklin County and Columbus, but they're also working with some of our rural partners to make sure that we're getting service to Intel or to some of these other sites. There's a big rallying effort around a program called Link Us. And what that is that's looking at a different form of mass transit. So it's called bus rapid transit. So this is, people may say, well, buses? Well, yeah, we've got a great bus system for what we invest in it. But bus rapid transit is buses with individual dedicated lanes that move faster. So it feels like light rail. And those are options that Link Us could bring all over the community. So people have a faster local option to get to Ohio State, to get downtown, to get out to wherever they work. That's something we're excited about. And we're particularly excited because when other places in the country have done this, they've thought about, well, how does housing connect to these stations? And how does the bike trail system connect? And how can you get there and walk there? So it's a much more holistic look at investing. And CODA's been great as a lead partner in that, along with Columbus, Franklin County, and a number of the suburbs too.
And that's pretty far along, though, especially they're already looking at like a West Broad Street corridor. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's work on analyzing the West Broad Street corridor. There's one looking at East Main Street. There's an effort that's kicked off to go from downtown up, if you can follow the map with me, up the Olentangy River past Ohio State, and then cutting over towards Dublin. And there'll be additional corridors that are being looked at as well.
It's about getting people from their neighborhoods to their jobs, right?
Yeah, it's about providing options. I mean, if you're looking to get to work, you'll want more options to make it easier for you or cheaper. That's a big part of this. This isn't about folks just taking it for fun. It's about people being able to depend on it every day and cut through that traffic faster. I'm just going to
throw this one out there. There have been some proposals for CODA in particular to just do away with fares. Is that something that you've ever looked at? Is that a good thing, or what do you think?
So we always defer to CODA on those things. However, we've looked around the communities in the country that have done this, and yes, it's increased ridership. But one of the important things to think about is not just how many people are on it, but the quality of the service. Mm-hmm. And the funds that come from fares allow a transit system options to do big transformative things, to add more service in areas that really need it. So it's a difficult question because you want people to ride it, you want them to maximize the service. But if you take that revenue stream away, you got to make it up from somewhere, and it might limit your options in the future. So if you're asking if I've got an answer on that, I don't. I think it's a difficult question. It's an intriguing question. But right now, I think CODA is making a smart choice to look at providing more options around the community, and they're being pretty innovative in different parts, and going fare-free would limit their ability to do that.
Our guest on the program today is the Executive Director of MORPC, the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, William Murdoch. There's some huge road projects underway, especially downtown. We're seeing that whole 70-71 split area being completely rebuilt, and they're going to change the face of the south end of downtown. What are some other areas that, including, of course, the New Albany area, that are going to need some help?
Yeah, and our office is right near that 70-71 split, and this is a moment for patience because these orange barrels are going to make it safer. They're going to make it easier to travel. When you look around the region, Intel, there's been the state and local partners have moved really quickly for the initial needs that need to be done. So there's work looking at widening 161 and parts of 270 to accommodate the site, as well as local roads that service the site. That's where you start. There's also a group of transportation authorities looking at the roads and the bridges that you'll need a little bit beyond the Intel site to help it. When we look around the region, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the East I-70 corridor. So if you think just past the outer belt by Reynoldsburg, there's some work that's really important to get done there to make it safer. If you're down in Lancaster on up through Canal Winchester, we all know that 33 needs a little bit of help in that direction. There's projects and work being contemplated. I'm going to go around the outer belt here. If you look up towards Delaware, 71, there's a need for additional or better interchanges in Delaware County. Those are on the list. So those are some of the big projects. Certainly there's things in Dublin or Hilliard or Grove City. I could talk about all of them, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But here's the important part, is most of this work isn't new roads. It's about improving the system we have. So fixing those lanes downtown, adding an interchange, improving an interchange, widening a road. If we're talking about cars, that's where we need to start, is fixing the system we have already.
Well, one of the issues, especially when it comes to the local economy that I've seen a lot lately, people just haven't gone back to their offices after COVID. Had such a major impact on what happens. And now, people come downtown for sporting events and for fun and to go to bars and stuff, but they're not down there in the daytime in the numbers that they used to be. How do you get them back?
Yeah, well, we have a lot of compassion for those small businesses down there who depend on people all day. So what we're seeing in the numbers, and this is an important distinction, is office workers are exactly what you're saying, where a lot of them are in a hybrid environment. They're not coming back, or they work 3 days a week. If you've done traffic downtown, you know that Mondays and Fridays tend to be a little light. We think that's why. So we measure these things. But when we look at what that means, is it might mean some of our roads can handle more, or we can postpone improvements because we don't need to. So it might be improving congestion. When we look at downtown, they're doing some really exciting planning work down there. Downtown isn't the same downtown it was when I was growing up in Central Ohio, because there's 15,000 people who live there. It used to be the adage, I think it was Mayor Coleman would say, you could throw a bowling ball down High Street at 6 o'clock and it wouldn't hit anybody. We have a lot of people who live down there. So they're looking at ways to get more people to live down there. A lot of employers are looking at different strategies for office sharing. If you think about Intel, I don't want to connect everything to it, but downtown Columbus is 20 to 30 minutes from that site. So if you think of all the employers and all of that office market downtown, that housing market downtown could be an attractive place to look at. So,
let's just we've been talking a lot about transportation, so let's just throw air travel in there.
Oh, sure.
What's the future of we have John Glenn Airport, we have a huge cargo airport. What's the future for our transportation when it comes to air travel?
Yeah, so we work closely with the friends at the Airport Authority. MORPC's planning doesn't get into vehicles that leave the ground. However, when we look at the growth, we're doing some really smart things out at John Glenn, looking at improving that terminal. This is about business. This is about economic development. And frankly, as somebody who likes to fly, it's about traveler convenience too.
Sure.
that airport's ready for an upgrade, and they're making those smart upgrades for the passenger. We focus a lot on freight and logistics, and this is where we do look at places like Rickenbacker. And this is something that unless you work down there, unless you've taken one of the discount flights down there, in Central Ohio, we don't even realize that we have one of the world's only dedicated freight airports. We have this incredible resource. If you're a package, you can take a direct flight to the Middle East, to Asia, to Europe. That's a very rare thing to have in a community like ours. And that means that whole area down there, the whole region can benefit from direct connections internationally. We've invested a lot in freight rail and making sure that that area is accessible to it. Logistics is big. So what does that all mean for air travel? That means at the same time we have these huge assets, our population, I'm going to keep telling you, we added 250,000 people last 10 years. We're expecting to add 725,000 over the next 25 years. That means if you want more direct flights, we're building a market. We're building a market so that the airport can get those West Coast connections or even more freight connections too.
I was talking to a friend the other day, and this might be on the quality of life issue.
Okay.
And they were saying, I can't go anywhere now without seeing a gigantic warehouse building. Either it's Amazon or it's one of these, data centers or something like that. So I guess the question I have is, you don't want to become a sea of warehouses in Columbus.
Yeah, it is a quality of life issue. It is something we have to think about because if you use Amazon a lot, and the Murdoch household does, those packages have to come from somewhere. And we've been very successful at that, also being a logistics hub. When we think about the quality of life, we want those places where they're building these large warehouses or these factories to be in places that make sense. Mm-hmm. And Rickenbacker is a great example of that. An international airport, a freight rail hub, highway connections, that's a great place for it. So when you're thinking about where to locate those things, they need to be, we think the region can be strategic about it. But with growth, we're going to need more of those things.
So I guess the final question I have for you is, what do we look like? What does Central Ohio look like in 2050?
If we do it right, this is going to be a place that is even better than the place that we call home right now. And when you think about adding all of these people to Central Ohio, that means if we make decisions today to give us more transportation options, to invest in our environment, to think about our housing needs, if we do those things right, we could actually create a community that has a higher quality of life than we have right now. And there's a great example of it. There's a program that we've helped support called Rapid 5, where we're looking not at just housing and transportation, but we're looking at the environment and how that connects people to neighborhoods and nature. At the same time, we're building these roads and we're thinking about passenger rail. We want to be really thoughtful about building in those quality of life pieces and connections to nature. And we think if we do it right, 2050 could be even better.
The Executive Director of the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, William Murdoch, has been our guest today. Thanks so much for taking time and explaining some of these major changes we're seeing in our region.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Columbus Concerns, a public affairs presentation of North American Broadcasting. You can send questions or comments about today's show to Columbus Concerns in care of this station, 1458 Dublin Road, Columbus 43215, or email us at columbusconcerns@napcomedia.com.
I think it's just vapor.
Vaping is safer than smoking, isn't it?
One vape pod has as much nicotine as one pack of cigarettes. Get your head out of the cloud. Talk to your kid about vaping. Visit talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
Are you 45 or older? Then listen up. The time is now to get yourself screened for colon cancer. The time is now to take control. Listen, this disease can be very treatable when caught early, so the sooner you know what's up with your health, the better. The good news is that there are options for getting screened that are easier than you think. Get informed. Hey, we're all busy and we think, I'll make time later. Well, make time now. It just might mean more time with your family down the road. If you're a man or a woman, 45 or older, I'm talking to you. Many of us have lost friends, young friends, to colon cancer. Don't make the mistake of waiting until you have symptoms or think that you have no risk because it doesn't run in your family. Everybody needs to be screened. So, take control. Get screened for colon cancer, 45 or older. Learn how at standuptocancer.org/colon cancer.